now we are, for example, booked almost the whole year. We've been having 98 to 97% every month, and we've been making a lot of money. And now we have an org board and we have employees and blah, blah, blah. And it's been only since May of this year.
This is episode number 25 of Short-Term Rental Success Stories podcast. Welcome back to Short-Term Rental Success Stories. I'm your host, Julian Sage. This is a show where I talk to hosts about their journeys in starting and growing their short-term rental business. My goal is that you'll be able to walk away with practical information that'll help you become a better host and learn how to scale your business. Like any exceptional host, we all strive for 5-star reviews, so please go on over to iTunes and let us know what you enjoy, as it really helps support the show. If you haven't done so already, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation, to connect with the community and other professional hosts that have been featured on this show. Today I have the honor of speaking with Nathan and Raquel Carrillo. Nathan and Raquel are full-time hosts who currently reside and manage 5 units in Mexico City, which they've scaled up to in 5 short months. Their portfolio of 5 consists of 2 properties which they own and 3 which they are subletting. In this conversation, Nathan and Raquel share their experience of growing this business in 5 short months, how they've organized their business for easy scalability, how to create units that stand out, and what it's like managing multiple properties in Mexico. If you like my show notes for this episode, go to shorttermsage.com/STR25, or if you'd like my show notes sent directly to your inbox every week, then go to shorttermsage.com/show notes. With all that being said, on to this week's conversation. Hey, welcome back, Host Nation, to another episode of Short-Term Rental Success Stories. In this episode, I have the special honor of speaking with Nathan and Raquel Carrillo. If you please wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and letting the Host Nation know who you are and what inspired you to get into short-term rentals.
Hi, my name is Raquel. So it's me and my husband that we're doing this. And we started with the short-term rentals, basically because it's an opportunity for constant expansion and creation. So that's what we found. And then also because we traveled a lot. And so we've always loved the experience of, the short-term rentals for that. And we started with our own property just to make it into something that we could use. And then it just started sort of snowballing from there. So.
And how did you first hear about short-term renting?
Well, we were actually Airbnb clients initially. So we would use the Airbnbs. And then it was, Nathan's idea, because we got into a lot of traveling situations where we would leave for, let's say, a month at a time. And so it was very expensive to have this other property that was just at a standstill. It wasn't producing anything. And so he was like, well, why don't we put it on Airbnb? You're already logged in there. So you can just turn it into a host and see if somebody rents it. And they did.
So you just started renting your first property because it's like you wanted to save some money. It was getting expensive. And when did it kind of click for you that it was like, oh, wow, this is actually a good business and we should start scaling this up? Because right now you have 2 properties that you own, you're subletting 3, but you guys are kind of like on a rapid expansion. You've only been doing this for about 5 months now, and you're really kind of planning to grow to 20 because you're by the end of the year, you're planning on getting investors and stuff like that. So when did it kind of click that it was like, wow, this is a good business, let's go all in on this?
Look, we started this because we wanted to live some months outside of Mexico City, because Mexico City, it gets very intense for it's an easy way to say it, but we wanted to live in some other countries. And I said we can rent our home and take that money and rent, for example, in Florence something like that. We live outside of Mexico City. It's like 30 minutes away. We live
from the center.
Yeah, from the center. We live in a golf area and golf club, and it's very far from the museums and restaurants. And once I put it on Airbnb, I received a lot of requests, and for me it was like, if listing my property here, I'm going to have that amount of clients, putting in the Polanco and the best areas in Mexico City, it's going to be a boom. And that's how we started, because it was, at the beginning, we were afraid that the clients or guests are going to do something wrong on our property. And everything was very smooth and very ethic. So that's how
I think it's pretty interesting because before Nathan, you were in real estate, and Raquel, you were doing art. So before you got into the short term rental and you really started kind of like getting in heavy with this, like were you did you have the possibility of like moving somewhere else, or is it because of the short term rentals that it's like now you have the opportunity to kind of move to different areas and scale this business up and be able to live off of your rentals?
No, I do good in my other businesses. I own some buildings and I do long-term rentals, and it's very not easy, but it's very okay. But the way that I can scale my business on the regular long-term rentals, it's not even similar to the arbitrage real estate, because with 1 million pesos I can get 10 units, and with 1 million pesos I can't have one apartment in Mexico City, so the way that I can scale the business, it's not even close one to each other. So that's basically why I got more attention on this business, because now we are, for example, booked almost the whole year. We've been having 98 to 97% every month, and we've been making a lot of money. And now we have an org board and we have employees and blah, blah, blah. And it's been only since May of this year.
That's crazy. Wow. That is some fast growth.
Yeah. And then the living somewhere else, it was a plan that we actually had together initially, but now it's turned into a reality because you do have something that's sort of a cash flow thing. So you know that you're going to receive some amount of money that you can use for whatever purpose you want in the future. So let's say that if I want to go to Florence next month, I know that I can because I had the whole of this month booked. So there's some money there that I'm getting throughout the whole month that I can use next month. So basically.
And is that basically how you are planning on scaling so quickly? Because that's kind of one of the beautiful things about short-term renting and rental arbitrage is like once you have those bookings and they are deposited into your account, it's like you already know how much you have and you can already anticipate and plan on what you have based off of your future bookings. So is that how you're planning on scaling this up to like 20 units by the end of the year?
It's not specifically that, because we need to pay. If in Mexico, I don't know how it works in US, the rentals, but in Mexico, you need to pay 2 or 3 different concepts before you get into a contract, and you need to do something legal things here. But I can use money from other companies that I own and work with that money. Now we got some investors that they put some money, so we can expand much, much faster. And the banks are getting to start to qualify the incomes from arbitrage or from Airbnb as a good income. So they start lending money to us. So that's how we can increase our properties.
I want to explain that a little bit further. So it's like they look at your statement. So let's say that I have this apartment in Polanco on Airbnb and it's fully booked for this month. And then you have bookings that go out through the year. So they take the total of that capital and they say, oh, so you're going to get a revenue of blah. And they can lend you that money because it's money that you already sort of own. So
Right.
it's sort of, they lend you money based on what your income is and is going to be. So it's very interesting because you sort of use that instead of a bank account, let's say.
Wow, that is pretty amazing. That's something that I've never heard of anybody doing anywhere else. So Mexico City, though, that's a pretty. Is that just because you live there and you're familiar with that? Did you know going into that market that it was going to be something that you could do, or I'm not sure how it is in Mexico with like the regulations and the bookings. How does that work?
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind explaining.
The regulations in Mexico are very smooth right now, but it's going to be tough in the future because all the companies like Uber and Rappi and all that stuff in Mexico started very free, and then the government started doing things here. But I think at the end, the demand of houses and listings in Mexico are bigger enough to make a good business.
Yeah, it's a very, very big city. So we have like millions and millions of people that live here. So we will get a lot of people, let's say, from the rest of Mexico that are just coming into the city for, work things that'll last a weekend and stuff like that. And then we also get a lot of people who are from out of town, just foreigners that come in because Mexico is a very important sort of layover stop for other places. And then let's say they want to go, to Cancun, which is sort of a very big Mexican spot. Then they'll usually stop in Mexico City first. And some people say, well, it's a good city. I mean, there's a lot to do here. There's a lot to see. There's tons of museums and it's a beautiful city. So it works that they sort of go like, okay, so I'll stay a couple of days in Mexico City and then I'll move on to wherever I'm going.
Yeah, Mexico City has everything, because if you want to have some good food, you can come here. If you want to visit museums, if you want to go to beaches, if you want to go to downtown, I mean, if you want to work or you need to work or you, all that kind of stuffs in Mexico happen every day.
And it's not very expensive. I think that's a very key point for people who are coming from outside is it's a very big city. So let's say it's sort of on the same scale as, let's say, a London or New York in terms of just how big it is and how many people you have coming in, but it's not as expensive as those cities. So it's much cheaper to stay here than it would be to stay in London or in New York.
So with the units that you're getting in Mexico, is there a lot of other people in the same space kind of doing similar things? Are people doing the rental arbitrage model? Are people owning and turning their units into Airbnb units?
I don't know a lot of people, but there are, because when I do the market research, I see the same person owning or listing some properties in good areas. I know one of my closest friends that he already owns 9 apartments and he's doing very good. Another one has 6. But how can I say? There's a lot of space on growing here in Mexico. And for what I can see on the Facebook chats and groups in the whole world, because, for example, in Mexico, Airbnb create a campaign on the streets that says you can stay in Airbnb here in Mexico or any place in the world. So Airbnb now is not only on the iPhone or on the internet, it's now on the buses and on the concerts. And so
there's promotion on the streets.
Yeah, which a lot of promotion. That's very good. In Mexico, for what I understood, last year, it was the 3rd most visit place via Airbnb in the world. So yeah.
And how do people take, so when you are talking to landlords and saying, hey, this is what our business model is, how have you been able to bring that subject to them?
It's very tricky. I don't know. It depends. It's like there's no specific, or for me, there's no like a scientific way to approach one. The only one that I change and it start to work much better, it's that I never say at the beginning, I want to sublet or I want to do Airbnb, because right away they hung up. Right away. They don't even want to listen to you. So I start saying like, hey, I own a business and I do a corporation rental for short and long term. And sometimes they got confused because they don't know if I'm a broker or if I am the owner or what I want. But that's much better than no, And now I have on the future 3 or 4 properties. Now I can reject some people. And the beginning it was, no, please, I want your property. So yeah, it's very different. And now I have a very good contract. I look for the properties by my own. I don't have any guy or broker in the middle because I need to do it. It's much, much easier.
Is there any, you have any advice for people that maybe are interested in Mexico City? Like, are there things that people should watch out for, or things that maybe do better for short-term renting?
Yeah, the taxes here, the people that usually rent the place or something like that, they want the payment every month in cash, and that's sometimes very difficult because Airbnb doesn't allow the cash, and that creates a lot of problems for me because I need to understand how to handle cash, and that's, for me, that's one of the most important or problems here in Mexico City. And there is a lot of informality.
That's what I'm kind of. That's what I'm kind of curious. Is this something that is a maybe scalable business in Mexico when people are maybe kind of inclined to an old system, exchanging money? Maybe they don't want to put smart locks or door locks for automated check-in. Is this something that is a scalable automated business, or is it very kind of clunky?
The people that work in Mexico, like the common people, they're not so expensive. So you can hire people and it's not very expensive. It creates a lot of not automatization as in US you can make it, right? But you can hold on that. You can do it.
So for example, I was looking into some of since we started scaling and the point is to expand quickly, I was looking into some of the automated
locks, smart locks.
No, aparte, also that. But I looked into it properly and those sort of things, and they didn't actually work for Mexico City because of the same thing that Nathan's saying, it's not as automated. But the way that we managed to sort of turn it around was that we have this one person who's in charge of the cleaning. And then I said to her, okay, so look, we have these properties, and at first she could do fine on her own, and then there's this point where you just can't. There's no way to cope with everything that you need to do. And so she started bringing in more people and making her own sort of little business inside of our own business. So each person turns into this hub of expansion, and you get people who just sort of have to replicate what they're doing and show somebody else how to do it. And then I treat with this one person, and I say, okay, so you need to be in these 3 apartments on the 26th. And then she has to figure out how she's going to make that work.
Now, with that, do you always need to? Are they able to use like some people use like Gmail, or they use Google Calendar to be able to coordinate? Do your cleaners? Do you need to constantly be in contact with them and telling them hey, you need to go to this unit, this unit, this unit, or is it pretty automated?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. So what we do is I'm the only one. Well, me and Nathan, we're the ones that actually get the bookings. So I will just log them into my own sort of little notes, and then I just pass them on to the person, and they log them as they wish to do so. So I don't care if they go, let's say so we have a sort of check-in and check-out policy. It's a 12 p.m. checkout and then 3 p.m. check-in. So they have a 3-hour window. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but that's usually what happens, to get all of the cleaning done and then all of our welcome stuff set up and everything that we need. So I don't mind if they get there at 1 p.m. If it's ready by 3, then it's fine by me. They can do their own sort of thing in that. But that's because I already trust the person. I know how they work. And in the beginning, it was a lot of sort of training. Okay, so you have to be here and then you have to do this. And I would go with them and say okay, so we're going to do the sheets this way and stuff like that. So at first it wasn't very automated, but now it's gotten to the point where we know each other very well after a couple of months of actually doing this and just sort of putting it in practice. And I can trust her to show somebody else how to do it, so I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Very nice. And what has been the most challenging part of starting your short-term rental business?
The amount of time that you need to put into looking for the market, because at the beginning we were a little bit afraid that where are we going to put our first $5,000 or $10,000 to start up one property, and it's more like I'm thinking like, how can I explain this? Because at the beginning we said, no, let's take a small apartment, so we don't have a lot of risk on it, and let's take it very slow. And at the beginning that was my first concern. But now I only want to have the biggest properties that I can get, because it's the same amount of time, it's the same amount of effort that I need to put, and it's much more profitable. A house of 7 rooms for 44 people, it costs a lot of money, but it pays off, So for me, the experience at the beginning, we were alone. We didn't have any coach, or we didn't have any safety net to work on that, but just patience and be very, very, very systematic, because it's not something that you list your properties, takes photos with your iPhone, and the people loves you. There is a lot of competition, a lot, and there are some people like us that are very good doing this, and they have org boards, and they have money, and they have intelligence, and for me now it's like a very, very, very scalable business, and I can do it in any place in the world. So
yeah, I think it's important to note there also that we made it sort of very automated for us, not necessarily, just as the operations go, but just how to, let's say, design a property. It's become sort of very mainstream in a way, because I'll just take a theme and I know exactly what to do with it. I get a budget and that's it. So it's become sort of very expandable in that sense. So what we realized is that you do need to have a good design. You do need to have sort of specific things that will help you differentiate from somebody else.
An org board, because if you don't have an org board, you're gonna go down very easily. Mm-hmm. If you want to do it for big, if you only want to rent your home and get some extra money, it's okay. But if you want to own 100, or I don't know, whatever anyone wants.
So he wants 100.
1,000. Nah, you need to have an org board, because if you don't have policies, and if you don't have specific tasks, specific products, mm-hmm. and if you don't have like a company, like USA, they have the best franchise in the world. So we are doing that. Yeah, we're working with Airbnb, very good, very, very, very good.
You just replicate what works.
So if you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit about your organization board, because and why that you feel that is so important, and how that has been able to help your business.
Because we have 7 divisions, and on each division there is a specific, we call it end product. And with an end product, I refer to something that division needs to work to get it done at the end. It doesn't matter what they need to do, they need to get that product at the end. And each division has one product, and that product, if we get each of those 7 products, at the end we have the biggest product that we need to sell to the guest, that it's a positive experience. So each division needs to work toward that direction, so we can get that 5 stars
review.
Mm-hmm. That's
So when you're talking about the product, you're talking literally like Airbnb. They have like cleanliness, hospitality, all of that. You have dedicated people to those types of products?
Yeah. For example, the first division, it takes care of the ¿cómo se base de datos?
Database,
and the welcome. Hey, they register all the email, phones, and do the hello to the guests. Then division 2, it works on everything that has to be with marketing, market research,
professional photographs of the listings.
Right, the description of the listings, and look at the other competition, that how they work, what they do, and that type of things. For example, last week we started to selling art, Mexican art on the properties that give us some extra money, and we started with selling, like, for example, Listerine and Diet Coke and
if
beers.
Somebody forgot their toothbrush. They have a little toothbrush kit.
And division 3 is everything that has to be with financial incomes and outcomes. Everything is there. Division 4 is everything that has to be with experience and the setup of a new listing. And experience is everything that has to be with cleaning, with hosts, with taking care of the guest. Since he booked, everything is smooth to him. Division 5 is everything that has to be with qualifications and corrections, reviews, how was everything and how we can improve each property and each process. And Division 6 is expansion. And Division 7 is the owners, basically. So each one has some specific task, and that's how we can scale it very easily.
It sort of goes moving in from one to the other one. So the first thing that happens is you get a property, let's say from the 7th division.
Right.
And then you go into, so you put that new property into your 1st division, which is sort of your interior communication. So you log it as a new property, and then you have to sort of say, okay, so we need a good marketing for this. And then you start taking pictures of that property. And then in the 3rd division, you say, okay, so we have this much money for rent and this much money for design. And so then you set it up and you do everything. You start getting bookings and everything. So you have a good experience in the 4th division. And then let's say that somebody says, okay, so I went into the bathroom and the towel rack fell off. And so Division 5 has to go, oh, okay, so we need to correct that. And they'll send it back to the person in 4 so that the person in 4 will correct it. And then in 6, it's just sort of expanding everything so that we get more people so that we can just replicate the process again and again and again. So it turns into a sort of cycle.
I like that because you're taking this approach because right now it's YouTube. From what I'm understanding, is you've laid out this whole kind of roadmap, these different divisions, but you guys kind of are managing the different divisions currently. But the way that you're planning on scaling it is that you'll be able to step away from that and be able to just have people managing these specific parts, so that you can be on the Division 7, correct?
Yeah, exactly. You got the point perfectly. The point is that you get people who can do these jobs for you, and everybody knows what we call it sort of hats. So you put on your hat and you know what you're supposed to do. So it doesn't matter that I'm doing it or he's doing it, because you know what your product is and you know what actions you need to take to get that product. So if each person is very clear on what they have to do, it's very easy to expand it and to give that job to somebody else, because you just sort of just keep replicating it.
Right, because you're creating the systems within those divisions that can be passed on to somebody else, so that you can step away and they can just manage that one particular area. That's a really nice way to kind of chunk up the information, and so it doesn't feel overwhelming to just pass this on to somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we can do it in any place.
Also, that's a good point.
And what has been the most challenging part of scaling your business? So after you got your first unit and you had it up and running, how was that getting more units?
For me, it's the fear of failure. That's like the biggest problem, because, for example, today I'm going to sign one contract, and it's very close to another property that we have in Condesa. Condesa, it's like Soho in New York, for example, to give you something like that. And sometimes on Division 7, we are looking at, hey, do we need another property in the same building?
Or the same street?
For the same street, and that kind of fears. And that, for me, the darkness of this business, that I don't have any coach or I don't have any Gandalf on the way that can let me know where to go. It's like the hardest part, because Airbnb, it's very intelligent. For me, it's one of the most amazing business that ever exists, Airbnb, because this is like to tell you why. We sign a contract, the owner gave me 2 weeks to set up everything. And in 30 minutes, I already have 3 books for in the future. So I paid the rent with only $200 that the photographs, the pictures cost me. So it was like, if I want to give for free my apartment and I post it on Facebook, I don't know if I'm going to have that amount of people wanting my apartment for free. So coming back to what I was telling you, the expansion for me is the most problem, to know where to put the other coins, where and how is the demand on that area.
Mm-hmm. And then what to do with it also, because I mean, that's his part with his expansion. And for me in the experience area, it's how to know how to best use the specific thing that I'm given. So I'll say, I don't know, let's say that they go, okay, so you have $2,000 and that's your budget. And so I need to make that into something that will be very noteworthy. So for me, the most difficult part has been, okay, so they did all the work as to where it needs to go, how much money it's going to cost and everything. And then I need to put their ideas into the physical universe and make it a thing. So it's sort of, that's been the most, I guess, challenging, which is also the most rewarding part and the most fun part, but it's difficult to sort of, you start getting confused as to, okay, but what if I do this and then I could do that, but then that's going to cost more money. So should I invest in that, or should I invest in something different or make it very cheap? And so it's been sort of a tug of war to see at what point. So now I know that I can invest in some key things that will make it better and make them be able to charge more. And sometimes it's just sort of this, okay, you need to give me a little bit more because it's going to work out. I promise. So that's just knowing what the balance is has been, I think, the most difficult part for me.
Yeah, working with money.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a good question to kind of play off that. What do you do to set your units apart?
Okay, so usually it's a very specific thing with art and design, which is great for what I do because that's literally my other business. So we try to, for example, I'll put accent walls in each room because I know that that's going to look good in a photograph and it's going to make a space much more habitable and much more, I guess, homey. And then you don't need to necessarily do anything with the rest of the walls. If you have this one accent wall, so for example, in one place, there's this brick wall outside that was great. It actually came with the apartment, but I started playing off of that. So I got that as the theme. So the theme is now sort of this New York brick house. And it works really well because you have this one thing that sets you apart. And then there were things that I started replicating. So we always put in a
poof.
Exacto. Like extra beds, because in the end it is a business. So every head that you can get into sleeping in your apartment is going to be extra income and revenue for you. So to do that with the less money and to make it an actual comfortable thing was sort of difficult. But we found this product that's like a poof. So like you can sit on it and it's really comfortable, and then you take off the top and it turns into a bed, which is awesome because it looks very good, but it still sort of works as a bed. And it's not the typical sofa bed that I hate them. Oh, they look so terrible. So that was sort of the one thing that we do. We do put in a lot of extra beds, or like we have this one bed in a room and then you can pull out a second bed. So that was very important. And also just what I've been saying about the accent walls, trying to use a lot of plants, a lot of Mexican design, because what we figured was at first we were trying to make them very just sort of, I guess, from other places, like this New York apartment. And then we started realizing that if people come to Mexico, they want to see Mexican things, right? So now we changed the whole setup of that, and we're making this, the house that Nathan mentioned with the 6 or 7 bedrooms. You can fit 30 to 40 people in there, which is like comfortably. Yeah, it's great. And the design is completely Mexican. Like the house is bright pink, like Mexican pink. So it's awesome because you can see it through from the whole block. And sort of went around that one thing and it just started scaling. And so now the floors are like this mosaic thing and all the walls are different colors. And it just sort of turned into this thing where you need to find a way to make something beautiful without necessarily putting too much money into it, but with key things that will make it stand out. So that's been the most important thing.
There's actually, we had another host that was on the show, one of our most recent episodes with Tyann Marsink, and one of her questions was actually, how do you build out and design such a big house? Because you guys are taking the one of the biggest houses in Mexico City, is what you said. So how do you the biggest house in Mexico City? So how do you design and decorate and make each room and that whole place unique without it being like cookie cutter?
Well, what I did was themes. So what I do is first I will literally design the house. So first he found the property, and the property needed a lot of
and the property, it was something amazing for me because I didn't have to pay any rent. We partnered with the owners because that house was not abandoned exactly, but they didn't live there since 1974. And it's in the best star in Mexico City.
And it's a big house.
Big. For example, if I want to rent that property, at least for me, it will cost me $10,000 per month, at least. And now they're gonna get 15% of the incomes, like a royalty, and they're gonna make a lot of money. Also, we got a agreement that if I sell the house, I can get 40% of the profits. And I mean, you can start making another businesses if you are smart and you understand the real estate business.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
and for the design part, it was basically to get a theme. So it was the Mexican theme. And then each room has to have a different theme. So let's say we'll go through colors and we'll invest in this one accent wall that I was talking about. That's always sort of the go-to thing. And in getting as many beds as possible in. So the first thing was I go to the house that he found, which is great. I take every single measurement in the house and I will make my own sort of little blueprint, a digital blueprint. And then I'll start playing around with what I want it to look like. And it's actually very close to what my original idea was. So it's great because I can visualize and then get a differentiator in. So with a house this big, it was very easy to put in a lot of common spaces. So we tried to make most of it into beds because that's where your actual revenue is and where your income is going to come from. But you also have to make it a good experience for the people who are staying there. So it was very important to put in specific things that are going to make it more desirable for the people who will go and stay there. So we invested, for example, in a projector to make a little outdoor cinema. And it's something very, very simple, but it's a great hook and it wasn't that expensive to make. And you can literally just sit down under the stars and watch a movie. And it's great. So those sorts of things were very important for us to make a good experience, because in the end, the product is the actual experience. It's not necessarily the design or finding the place. So it was all sort of geared towards that. So everything that we do is with that in mind. So we went, for example, last weekend, we went to Puebla. It's another city in Mexico. And we went to buy decoration, Mexican stuff for this house. And so we will go that extra mile and go somewhere else and just to make it special. So that's also important. Make it something that people won't usually see in other places so that they want to stay at yours instead of somewhere else.
Yeah, we set up a space to do co-working and
Exacto, eso también.
We create a communal bathroom so they can take a shower at the same time, 8 people. You know, that is more like hostel, something like that, but Airbnb hostel. So it's something much better than a regular hostel.
Exactly.
So in that house, you've created like a community bathroom type hostel environment?
Not really. I mean, we have like one kitchen, then we have one dining room, we have one sitting room. Then there's the what I mentioned about the outdoor cinema. And then we have all these different rooms. So some of them will have a bathroom and some of them won't. And for the ones that don't, we have a big bathroom. that lots of people can be in at the same time. Because if you're thinking, I mean, we have 30 to 40 people in there, you do need to have a lot of places where they can sort of hang out. And then also the bathroom is very important. The kitchen is very important. So like we have this huge 4-meter long table that we put like little benches in. So if somebody wants to actually sit there and work, they can, and somebody else can be having breakfast at the same time. So I think that's what he means with the hostel thing.
Yeah.
And we put in a co-working bench as well, because we know that people do want, or do sort of like us, they have this business they can manage over the internet. And so they do want to have a space where they can work. And so we sort of thought about that and geared it towards those types of people.
Wow. So this home, because initially kind of what I was thinking was you got this place and it's going to be like just maybe for like a big family or something like that. But what you're saying is that this unit is going to be multiple people can book different rooms in this place, and it's going to be like a hostel, that there's going to be community and you're creating an experience for the guests.
That can happen too. It depends on the
whatever.
market. Yeah. We don't have like that specific viewpoint on that property. We are looking to solve problems or experiences to big groups that usually come to Mexico, or big families, or a lot of friends and whatever. And they want a big place. They want to eat together. They want to hang out together, and they want to feel that they own a place in the heart of Mexico, in Condesa. And there's only 3 more places in Mexico. They can accommodate
that many people.
20 people, something like that, 20 something, but they're very tight. And here we have like a real good place.
A lot of space.
Yeah.
I'm curious, because I think that's super interesting that you know, the biggest house in Mexico City, you were able to just go there and say, hey, you know, partner with me and I'll give you a split of the profit. And you worked out all this really amazing deal. How do you even structure something like that, where because I'm sure that there needs to be a lot of renovations and stuff to the home. Yeah. You said that there was some it was a bit older, and you're putting in all these new things. Are you guys also splitting the cost of rehabbing it, or is he just doing that? Or
we're investing like $80,000, something like that.
A little bit less, I think.
A little bit less.
That includes the renovation of everything, like anything from like rotting walls and stuff like that to floors, the beds, exactly. Yeah, all the furniture, all the art, painting the walls, everything is in there.
Yeah, something that it's very important that the people get the point. It's the money. If you are going to invest money on this, you need to invest it on the furniture, not in the walls and not in the floor. Because if you need to run, or you need to go out.
Yeah, if it's not working for some reason.
The only thing that you can take, it's not the pipes, it's the beds and it's the couches, and that's it. So maybe there's 70% of my budget there, it's for furniture. So if this house doesn't work, I can get 5 or 6 apartments right away.
The same thing.
But no, we're not partnering with them. I'm looking for properties daily. I have maybe 3-4 appointments daily, and I make maybe 20 inquiries daily. So for me, that's the only way to understand the market, to also to feel the owner, because there are some owners that they are in need of money, and they are very, come here and we can set up right away. So it's not something that I can tell you like scientific things, but it's more like a feeling that you need to develop on the sales. And because you are selling yourself, you're not buying the property, you are selling your concept to them, and then they need to buy from you the contract. So when I understood that, for me it was much easier.
No, I think that's really interesting that you're having to sell yourself to them in order to get this business. But a lot of people are saying like, hey, just come here, rent, and you have to discern whether this is going to be a good business, but also while you're also selling yourself.
Yeah. For example, we create a video that explains our business, and it's a very good video. We created with very good design, very good music, so they can understand. Because in Mexico, the people that owns the best places, they are not young people. They are not like us. They are maybe people that has 70, 80 years, 60 years, because that's the people that have the money, or they inherit something like that. And
or they inherited a property from their parents, for example, and they have it there and it's making very little money when it could make so much more, but they don't know how to put it into practice because they don't know anything about this whole digital
and
age.
They don't want to. So once I said to the one person, no, I'm going to make this amount of money, he canceled the contract and he started Airbnb. So also you need to be aware of what you're saying. But we create a whole package of sales from us as a public relationship, so they can understand what we do. I take success histories from the landlords, and they say, no, he pays me very good the rent, he's very ethical, blah, blah, blah. So I have a carpet or a file that I can share with other landlords, so they understand that I have a good business. I understood that I need to create confianza, ¿cómo se dice? Trust on my company. So I saw it like that. I saw it. I need to create a business presentation. I need to create a website. I need to create this. So once they look at me, they saw me like, okay, this guy's gonna take my apartment for 3-5 years, so I want him. So yeah.
There's a lot of education and a lot of trust that you have to build up before you get into these relationships. Is there anything that you would do differently if you had to start from scratch?
Don't take apartments of 1 bedroom. And also don't invest in walls and on floors. A lot of money on that.
Unless it's absolutely necessary. So take it to the bare minimum. Right.
And also do it much, much bigger, because it's the same amount of effort to handle 1 or 100 properties. So for me, no, I don't have any regrets, actually. I was thinking on that, but no.
Something that we would change?
No, I didn't. I wanted to understood this business before, because I spent a lot of time renting long-term rentals, and it's not that profitable as this one. And yeah.
And where do you see short-term rentals going in the future in Mexico City?
I don't know. I really don't know. That's something that scares me a little bit, because I have different viewpoints. I was doing it there. I was a landlord 6 months ago, a regular landlord, and now I became an arbitrage landlord or something like that. And it's, sometimes I said, if this is going to work, wow, it's amazing. But how many competition that we're going to have, or how I can scale it? One thing in Mexico that I saw as a good and bad indicator is the bank doesn't give money to everybody as in US, or it's not cheap. The bank here charge 20% per year for 1 peso. For each peso, they charge you 20 to 18%. For what I understand in US, it's 2, 3, 4, 5%. So that makes if you don't have some money with you, you can't do it. You can't pay your rent with a credit card in Mexico. There's no way to pay with credit card. So for me, that's good, because I have the possibilities to go into that market
and expand it.
But I see a very good future, because Mexico, it doesn't matter what happens in Mexico, always there's people that want to come to visit Mexico City. It's like,
or work here.
Or
it's such a big city that so the only thing that you need to survive is food, water, and a place to sleep. So there's always going to be somebody who can pay a rent for a place because they do need somewhere to be. So they're going to invest in that and in food before they invest in anything else. So the point is, if you always have something that you can use as an active asset, it's always going to be, I mean, maybe you rent it a little bit cheaper, maybe a little bit more expensive, but you're always going to need somewhere to sleep. So I think that's an important point with this business. If for some reason Airbnb just suddenly drops off the face of Mexico City and nobody can do anything with it, then you can always take those properties and rent them because it is an asset that you have. So I think, I mean, it shouldn't. It's growing substantially. So it looks like it's going to go up and up, or that's at least the tendency that I'm seeing. But if for some reason it should fail, it's a very easy and simple thing to sort of make into something else without much effort on your part.
And are you all planning on just expanding within Mexico City? Or are you looking at other areas right now as well?
Yeah, other areas and other countries. Yeah, as I said, the org that we have, we are very sure and confident that we can replicate it in Africa, or we can replicate it in any place. We need to understand the laws and the taxes, policies, and that kind of things in each country. But for me, it's very, very easily to work with it.
You need to just find a person that's going to be sort of your safe point in a different country, and that's it. You just sort of expand it from there. So I think it's very simple. And we are looking at, for example, some cities in the United States. I think Europe would be awesome. So hopefully.
And do you have any questions for maybe another host? Is there anything that maybe you've been wondering about, or if you could ask someone that is maybe at the next level from where you guys are a question, what would that be?
Yeah, how they look at the future, as a question that you asked to me, because the only thing that I don't like from this is that if for some reason Airbnb changed something, the whole org board collapse. Like if they want to change something, or they want to charge something, or they put the company on the market stock and other people want to change something, that type of things. Maybe everything will collapse if they are not very smart people on handling power or something, and they only want profit. Something like that. It's how they look at that, how they can risk much more money on this type of businesses, and also what is better, to put a lot of attention on places like beaches that are very seasonable, or like the metropolis like Mexico City or New York, or that type of things. Yeah.
No, that's a really good question. And just to kind of rehash that, it's what you're asking is like, how do companies like, let's say Sonder, or these big companies that have multiple properties, what is their backup? Like if they just say you're not allowed to do this in New York City, or you're not allowed to do this in whatever area, what do you do with those properties, is what you're asking?
Yeah, basically. And the money that you put on the down payments and everything,
Because you do also get long-term leases to then you sublet. So if you have a lease for, let's say, 3 to 5 years, and then suddenly at the second year they go, oh, guess what? You can't do Airbnb anymore. Then what do you do with that remaining lease?
Yeah, it sounds like it's an issue. We had another guest on the show, Farhan Abbasi, and he had about 40 properties in the Boston area, but due to regulations, he had to start scaling them back, and he didn't really have that kind of like backup system set in place for his organizational board, and he just had to start dissolving properties and either selling the furniture or getting rid of the furniture. So it's kind of an unfortunate thing, but I think it's an important question to maybe once I get someone on the show that has scaled up to much larger amounts, maybe within cities that have had to dissolve, like what do they do with those units? I think that's a really good question that I will be sure to ask one of the next guests. But thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was such an honor to hear, and I wish you the best of luck and success on your expansion and with the house. And until next time, Host Nation, keep on hosting. Hope you hosts benefited from the show. If you found value, please go on over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let us know what you enjoy about the show. If you'd like to talk to hosts that have been featured in these episodes as well as the community, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation. Talk to you hosts in the next episode. Keep on hosting.